Oh, okay. It says at the top, avoid legal snags by telling the person that you're recording.
Yeah.
We're recording, just so you know, Jake.
All right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, well, I guess, welcome to the Record Night podcast. This is the first time we're introducing a video element. Jake is isolating himself, uh, during this whole COVID-19. Well, kind of a side note, a friend of my sister's who listens to the podcast, or at least has listened to the podcast, posted on social media the other day that one of her kids referred to this as the granola virus. Uh, thought that was pretty funny. So because of the granola virus, Jake is he's not with me in person, but we're connected this way. So well, we talked about it before, but how you holding up?
Just fine. We're kind of just isolating ourselves as best we can. I've got diabetes, and my mom has diabetes, and it's a house full of older people, so we just thought it'd be best to play it safe and hang out at the house as much as we can and just stay away, I guess.
Yeah,
Shelter
that's
in place.
that's fair. That's fair. Um, okay, so I posted, well, I guess yesterday, a couple days ago, I don't know, introduction to Joe of the Record Night podcast, and so I wanted to do the same thing with Jake. Again, just with the feedback being that people don't really know who anybody is on the podcast. In this edition, we're going to get to know Jake. So, yeah, I'll give you the floor, man. Kind of similar to Joe the other day. If you just want to, talk about how you got into music and just all that sort of stuff.
What's interesting about music with me is it's not something I really I won't say it's not something that's been a part of my life for a long time because looking back it has, but it's not something I've really like been interested in or had like a drive to explore music all my life. I mean, I remember growing up, my dad would give me rides to and from school, and it was just 98.5 the whole time. So obviously, I say I wasn't exposed to music, but I was actually, that's classic rock for those of you who don't know, Cleveland's classic rock. And that's probably why my taste in music is I was able to kind of pick up exploring music as quick as I did because I already had that background without even knowing it. So I was spoiled in that way. But as far as my own kind of journey in music and exploring music, I'd say that I'd probably honestly say that video games were my first real exposure. I listened to like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 soundtracks were kind of my first exposure to like I'd say hip hop probably, and from there everything just branched. The way I typically go through my music wormhole is, for example, I'll find I was playing Tony Hawk and I discovered Aesop Rock and Idea and Abilities, both hip hop artists who are assigned to Rhymesayers, and from there I discovered bands like Atmosphere and that just keep branches off and branches off and branches off. Same thing with Tom Morello and Rage Against the Machine, which we discussed in I think our Fabled City podcast.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's funny. That's similar to Joe. Well, and myself too. Video games were kind of a big, I guess, introduction to music in a lot of ways. Um, okay, but you're kind of all over the place. So you started with kind of classic rock, and then you got into different kinds of music from video games. What about like your? I feel like your folk kick is a little bit more recent. Is that just based on Tom Morello?
Yeah, that is based on Tom Morello. He was like the first folk artist I'd ever listened to. So, but I have a soft spot for it. Like I know all the lyrics to basically most of his songs. So, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is that how you got into Bruce Springsteen as well?
Yep. I
Okay.
I listened to I think it was might have been High Hopes was the first one I listened to, and I think I went backwards from High Hopes if I'm not mistaken to
Okay.
Wrecking Ball. But yeah.
So, well, just while you've been, isolated recently, have you, been listening to anything currently?
A lot of Metallica I've had on
Okay.
rotation. I mean,
Nice.
that's a pretty much a given for me. That shows up at least once a year for about a month straight. I'll have a huge Metallica binge that I'll do. But I've been into lots of Vic Wooten lately too, famous
Whoa.
bass player. So
Is
yeah.
that like you played like a bass performance for like me and Joe at one point, and I kind of made fun of it. Like it sounded like the Seinfeld theme. Is that kind of
Oh
what you're talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, it's definitely jazz bass.
Okay.
Heavy jazz bass kind of influence. I love the bass guitar. It's my favorite instrument by far. So that's, if you'll notice, listen to the noises I make during a podcast whenever I clap or laugh or, you know, give my little jeer of approval. It's because there's a tasty bass lick just getting ripped over the speakers every time.
Yeah, well, it definitely helps. I've definitely been getting more into like soul and kind of funk music lately, and so the bass is, it kind of makes it. That's the
Front
first
and
thing you
center.
notice. But yeah, but generally I don't. It's so interesting that you're so into the bass because I don't really notice it. I'm more, well, I mean, I suppose it is more of a background instrument. I guess it can
Yeah.
get featured in some kind of music, but yeah, generally I don't even pay attention to it, and you're all about it. So it's funny, like, hearing you like, I'm like, what the hell is he making noises for over there? But that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Learning to love bass was kind of actually like a journey for me, and it's all, probably why I've actually always wanted to get a bass, because I just remember listening to music as a kid and like you can make sense of it now, but back then when you're first kind of just listening for the first time, it's hard to make out what the bass is actually doing to the music. For example, you hear the
Yeah.
guitar like playing the same chord over and over, but somehow it changes. Like it's just a bass line progression. You're like, why is that different? Like I remember myself rewinding the music, like, how did they make it so the note was the same but different? And here it was just the bass player hit, an octave lower or something like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've always noticed it even from a young age.
Well, okay, but so your musical interests are kind of all over the place. So do you have a favorite artist?
No,
Too
I
hard.
don't, it's too hard for me because like you said, for me, music is more, I think for a lot of people, music's kind of like a pyramid, I guess. And I guess you could imagine a mountain, but for me, music's like, it's like a landscape, right? There's hills and valleys, there's
Okay.
spots for all sorts of different, tempos and moods in music. So I can't, it's too hard for me to rate the music because I don't know. Like I can name you music that gets me pumped up, like Metallica or stuff like, or on the reverse end, you have like, I don't know, Stevie Ray Vaughan, a song like Riviera Paradise, like a really slow jazz song. Like both of them affect me in different ways, but I can't necessarily put one higher than the other.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Um, obviously, so you won't be with us for a while, but what were well, you said you've been listening to Metallica lately. Is that kind of we just listened to A Perfect Circle, which that episode's never going to see the light of day
Oh
because
no!
we did the whole episode recording on the laptop microphone.
Oh
But I
no!
I had unplugged everything and plugged it back in, and it defaults to the laptop mic. So Audacity, like I'm getting feedback because the laptop mic is recording us. But yeah, it
Right.
sounded so like we're underwater for the entire episode. But so that's unfortunate. But you brought that. You were thinking about Metallica. Had you been thinking about bringing anything else?
Yeah, I actually just got. I might round off Brother Ali for a while. There's one more record I think that if anyone has listened to Brother Ali, like, should listen to. It's an album called Us, and Rhymesayers has just released his 10-year re-release anniversary LP. So it's a double LP um, with a little extra like 7-inch bonus
Oh,
vinyl with 2 tracks on it. So I'm kind of trying to decide between that, just kind of round off Brother Ali, which I think would be a good idea, or like just bring Metallica. But considering my last album, I don't know. I'm still, every time I have to choose between 2 records, it's virtually impossible to choose which one I'm going to
yeah,
bring. So it's like, I'll flip a coin like we were going to do last time, and we'll see what happens.
yeah, I understand. Um, Okay, wanted to get your thoughts on a few other things that Joe and I touched on. So just kind of how Record Night started. What's your recollection of how Record Night became a thing at all?
Well, what's cool about it is I just remember I don't think we had hung out as a group for quite some time, like a couple years. I know you hung out with Joe and you were watching like wrestling and stuff, but as far as I'm concerned, like I was busy in my own little bubble. We were all kind of doing our own thing, and one night you're just like, "Hey man, come over." And I think this might have been a UFC fight. And usually that would be the occasion where we get together a couple times, like every few months. But I just remember putting on the speaker and hooking up our Bluetooth to the speaker and just for about 8 hours straight. It must have been. I remember going home at like 4 or 5 in the morning, just with some brewskis, just throwing a bunch of music back and forth, stuff like Johnny Cash and Gangstar, and just a whole wide array of different kinds of music. And we were just like, man, we should do this more often, like every week. So, and that's how it came about. The rest is history.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly right. It's funny hearing you tell the story separately, because it's exactly how I remember it. But that's why we did it for so long, is because we'd kind of end up down different tracks, like where we're just listening to hip hop for a minute. Like I remember wanting to change the song, but like I got a Cat Stevens song on deck, which is such a change of pace.
Yeah.
That you kind of had to ride the wave until you could kind of find a way to pigeonhole your stuff back into it. But
Right.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I remember till like 5 in the morning, and when I woke up, I thought, yeah, we got to do that again sometime. That was way more fun than watching the UFC. So so I remember wanting to do it again. But then, do you recall how it progressed into like, okay, let's listen to records instead?
Not really, but I think it came as a surprise that we all actually had vinyl collections already. I don't think it was that we just started listening to vinyl. Like I'd gotten a record player, an old 80s Sony record player from my brother-in-law's dad, and my brother-in-law gave it to me. And I said, yeah, and they got me, I think, an Atmosphere record as well to go along with it. For Christmas. It was little like it was a singles. It was a pack of singles, like 5 or 6 singles. And but yeah, I mean, we had already had our own record collections. Like, hey, like maybe we should do it this way. I mean, vinyls are kind of, I know they're making a comeback, but it really kind of reinforces that element of just being present with the music, like having the physical media there with you, so front and center. It just, yeah, it's cool, man.
Yeah. For me, I didn't know you had vinyls. I had a record player. I had records. I knew Joe did too. But yeah, I didn't know you did. So that's why I didn't think of it. But yeah, I don't know if we ever really did that ever again, where we like listened on the Bluetooth speaker. But I remember we were listening like on my TV. Like I pulled up Spotify on the TV, like after UFC or something similar.
Right.
And we were listening to music that way. And I forget what song it was, but I was like, this is just not, you're not hearing this the way it should be heard, like,
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, hold on, I've got a record player and decent speakers, better than the TV. And then when I found out that you had records, I was like, all right, you guys bring a record and let's do it. And,
That's interesting how that made a huge difference too. And like, what was the record we listened to? I think the Warren Zevon record, like it was completely different, but I think that was a different thing because once we started kind of using your speakers and listening to vinyl, I remember I added the subwoofer in. I was like, well, once you realize what you're missing in music, then you think, okay, like how can I improve this? And then here comes the subwoofer. I just disconnected it to my house, bought a couple cords, jury rigged it up to the record player, and again, it's another experience. It just improves it all that much more. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it definitely adds depth to it. The record itself does that. As far as not being, I still don't really have a good ear for that. As far as like hearing like the full sound versus like a compressed file or whatever. Maybe I don't know if you have more of an ear for that. But
that's a bunch of audiophile hubba bubba. Don't fall for it. If you got a nice 320 bit rate MP3, you're getting the full experience. Most of that extra, it's basically a bunch of wasted file space for a slight digital noise that's barely audible. It's not worth it. That's why compression exists in the first place, because it's just getting rid of empty space that's not audible to human hearing. So yeah, if you have a decent bitrate MP3, you're not missing out on much. But as far as the hardware itself, the sub just like adds a lot.
Yeah. Well, and even if you do have the MP3, you do need like a good pair of headphones or something so you can at least hear it in its entirety. All the complexity. But yeah, as far as like the appeal for records for me has really just been more like the routine of it, the artwork on the records, and just I don't know, just and I guess the nostalgia. But yeah, it's more all that sort of stuff instead of the actual sound.
Yeah, that's really cool too. Yep. I remember, I mean, the coolest one I have, my Atmosphere record, like we said, it's like that children's book. It's like
Oh yeah, I love
you
that.
just don't get that with even a CD. Like CD, you might get a poster that's folded up and your CD case ends up cracking because it's way too
Yeah.
much to jam into a CD case. With
Oh
this, you
yeah.
get cool artwork. I mean, look behind you. You've got a lot of artwork that probably came from
Oh
vinyl
yeah.
and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
Well, it's funny because the Warren Zevon picture behind me is actually those are all CD covers, and it works for that, so I can kind of get all of them up together. But individually,
yeah.
I definitely like to have like the artwork and the lyrics, and I love all that. But yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to think of what else we can kind of go wherever we want, but I wanted to get your thoughts on Sturgill Simpson. Joe and I, we listened to "Wait for the Sky." I didn't want to do any new records or anything, so I just figured I'd go back to "Wait for the Sky" since we've heard that one before. So
Hmm.
we listened to that, but we finished up and thought, well, what the fuck? We were both just in the mood to listen to another record, so I had Joe pick one, and so we just listened to "Sound and Fury"
Yeah.
again.
Well, I mean, why not?
Yeah, exactly. It's because it's fantastic. So we listened to it and then kind of just talked about that record itself and just seeing him live. So just talk about that for a minute. How'd you enjoy the concert, the record, whatever?
Well, the concert was amazing, but I think what I'd say most is like "Remember to Breathe" is such a relevant a relevant track title as it pertains to the concert. I don't remember if he actually played that song, but
He did.
he was shredding the entire concert. He was
Yeah.
basically shredding, and there was a lot of changes in tempo from the record, and I kind of appreciated that. Like you
Hmm.
said, I think before, I was looking forward to hearing the record in its entirety, but at the
Yeah.
same time, just he kept us on our toes with all the tempo changes and the change in order of the songs. Um,
Mhm.
I I am like a bass loser, so so of course the acoustics of the like being in a big like arena like that, the bass can kind of get lost, especially within a more complex part. Their bass player
Mhm.
is amazing, by the way. Um,
Yeah. Chuck
for his
Bartels.
band, yeah, he's amazing. He's really talented. But I mean, overall, I was just thrilled with the entire concert. I had a good time. I only wish I had slept better at the Airbnb
Oh
because I was
man. Yeah.
so tired from having my face melted. All I wanted was an hour of rest, but I was sleeping on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. I took full advantage of that and slept on the futon that you had abandoned because that was giving you an issue too, which is why
Oh
you
yeah,
went to the floor.
all the
Um,
woes of being 6'8" million.
uh, for the Jake is embellishing a bit. He's not quite that tall for the listeners, or the viewers in this case. I don't know how this is gonna work though. Record like I guess like it'll record. I don't know if I'll be the bigger screen and you'll be whatever. I'll figure that out
Eh,
when we wrap up here. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, what Joe and I were talking about is just like the stink face that you make during a guitar crazy intense guitar part like that.
yeah,
You had to make that face every song, pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah.
So that's what you're almost sore after is what I told Joe.
Hmm.
You know. But the lights. Talk about the lights.
Yeah, that was trippy. I mean, that was first of all, the entire stage. I don't remember. I think the stage was all red, like it was glowing red, if I'm not mistaken. And then
Was
they
it,
all come out in red suits. The
yeah.
organ that he's playing on has like red LEDs hanging off of it. So like it was crazy. Just tons of flashing and like lasers everywhere. Like it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, but Joe picked up on they would change the lights, so they would be red if he was playing something off of the new record. They would be red, and then if you did something from Sailor's Guide, they would go to blue lights.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't notice that. That
yeah,
completely I completely missed out on that. Wow,
yeah.
that's fucking cool.
Although he finished with Call to Arms, and I think that was just they kind of abandoned that whole thing, and it was just red, and that was when you know
Right.
the lights in the back were that filled the entire arena.
Yeah.
were
I'm
going off.
surprised.
So
I'm surprised they didn't flash one of those seizure warnings on the little screens there before he started playing that
I'm
song.
always surprised, but it's got to be in the fine print because I've been to even pro wrestling events that have crazy lights, and I'm like, Jesus, if I were epileptic, this would
Yeah, this.
100% induce a seizure.
Hey man, what a way to go!
Yeah,
That's the way
right,
I want to go if I was
right,
epileptic.
yeah, right. It would have improved the concert even more. Had
Yeah.
a seizure during. Um, yeah, but so just to go, I guess go back to just the record itself, for a minute. Just what are your thoughts on that in terms of, what I thought about a little bit is I love the record. Okay, I thought it was amazing, but I think, we commented on the fact that a lot of people left during that show. Do you think they were there for? Do you think there's country people that don't like this record at all, and just what do you think of it?
you know, I I I can't speak to that. I have a hunch that I'll speak to it. I'm going to say I'm not going to speak to it and then speak to it. I have a hunch that it just wasn't people's cup of tea, I guess. It was so different. It was almost like alternative country, if that's a thing. Like with all that synth keyboard and just these weird musical breaks that don't. I mean, I guess you wouldn't even call. It was definitely more like you said before, like a rock album more
Hmm.
than a country album, I'd say. A lot of influences we keep saying from the Cars and stuff like that,
Yeah, sure.
like
Yeah.
like super prevalent. But yeah, I do think I don't think it was so much that it wasn't their cup of tea. I think they might have been there for what's his name?
Tyler Childers.
Yeah, Tyler Childers. I think they might have been there because he's pretty popular
Who he's
amongst.
he's very good, by the way. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, yeah. But I think maybe just a lot of people were mainly just here to. You could hear in kind of the chatter of a lot of the people who were attending that they were there. Like I remember one guy saying, "I'm only here to see Tyler. Like I don't even
Oh,
know who
okay.
this other guy is." So it might just be a matter of, which is weird because didn't he win like a Grammy for like best country album one year?
Sailor's Guide was that, and I don't even think that was really a country record. It's his
I feel
voice. His voice
he's like
maybe
a
is what makes it
country
country.
singer's favorite country singer. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? He's kind
yeah.
of got that OG vibe to him. I think. I
Oh,
think he's
sure.
probably well respected amongst the community, but maybe not so much amongst general fan base. Is my hunch.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
think he's amazing, and I really enjoyed, especially his last record was just fucking phenomenal.
yeah. All right. So let me circle back just to kind of record night itself. When it's your turn, when you bring a record, what are you hoping to get out of that? Because there's kind of a different. I guess it depends on what record you bring, as far as like we're just gonna rock out, or this is really meaningful, and I want to kind of get this across to the other guys in the room as to why this is so meaningful. Is
I mean, I guess yeah, there would be three. I mean, yeah, I mean that's you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like either it's because, for example, I wanted to bring Metallica, and it's just because that was the mood I was in.
Hmm.
To be quite honest with you, like I was in the mood to just like let loose, do some headbanging,
Yeah.
hopefully not lose the headphones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes you're just in that mood, and then other times, like with this Eat the Elephant album, which unfortunately won't be posted, and it's most of the Brother Ali, like there's a message behind it that I'm looking to get
Hmm.
forward. And other times it's the craft, like Atmosphere. That he had some cool lines, but that was more like a vibe. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the production, Ant's production is like front and center in a lot of those records. Like, or it could be a specific musician. Like if I end up bringing Vic Wooten, that'll be like to show off a specific talent. Like as far as
Hmm.
how skilled someone is. So it's could be for a range of reasons. It just depends on how I'm feeling.
Yeah. So hold on, I was gonna. Oh, I'm gonna give you a homework assignment.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so
More
when we,
homework.
well,
More
I
goddamn homework. You son of a bitch. Look at
well, I,
this.
well, I would refuse. I would refuse to do that homework. But then again, I wasn't a very good student, so that's not surprising. Um, no, but anyway, Wait for the Sky. Somebody did a cover of that. I don't know if it was Idea himself, but
Really?
you'll have to look into that. Yeah, I don't know if it was Idea or somebody in that circle did a cover of Wait for the Sky and used that as a sample. in it. So your homework assignment is to give that a listen. I thought
Okay.
it was a cool kind of connection there that I did not expect to find.
I will look for that. That's interesting.
I think Jackson Brown's kid might be involved in rap or something, and that's kind of how it came about. I'm not sure, but
All right, I'll write that down actually right now. If I just drop my pen, it doesn't matter. I'll remember.
um, all right. Well, I kind of is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Update us on anything?
No, not really. Just keep spinning vinyl, everyone. You know what I mean? I really
What
encourage
else?
everyone to
Yeah.
do the same thing that we do because as
Yeah.
cool as this podcast is, get together with your buddies and spin some records, connect with your friends. There's not enough. There's there's enough digital in the world today. Like you should uh, go back to basics. Sometimes it makes an impact on your life. It's a great way to unwind at the end of the week. Open up a few beers, spin a vinyl. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Amen, brother. That's the other thing about record night that I think that was important for me is, when we first put on the Bluetooth speaker that night to listen to music, it was more just in the background, but it quickly became like what we were actually focused on. So I think that a lot of times everybody loves music,
yeah.
but a lot of times it's on at parties just in the background. I think the cool thing is to actually sit down and kind of make that the center of attention. And that's
Yeah,
another thing that I think people should do more of.
it's a treasure trove, man. And even when we're sitting down like analyzing it, there's things that can go over your heads that you don't even realize until you've looked at it again or listened to it again. So it just goes to show you how much music has to offer. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, it's nice to know that we now have this capability. We'll try to maybe we can involve you in one of the podcasts this way, or at least for a minute. I mean, talk to you on the phone or something like that. So,
Hmm. Yeah,
all
sounds
right,
good, man.
all right. Well, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for connecting with me here.
All right, brother. I'll see you next week, hopefully.
All right, bye.
Later.